So we know each other, but just for people who don't know us tuning in, my name's Mackenzie. I am a practitioner with Mind Change, and your name is?
Angela Hooper.
Yes, and you have been doing the Mind Change courses. You're actually one of our assistant mentors, and we do monthly, for people who are enrolled in the course, we have monthly mentoring calls, and sometimes I lead them, and you've helped me with some of them, and that's been really great. So it's really, today is the first time we've met in person. Yay! So it's really nice to get to meet you. And we've been talking with a number of the women who've been a part of this book club that you started.
Yeah.
And so I was curious, how did you first hear about Mind Change?
That's a great question. I have to think about that for a second.
Sure.
I think it was actually my father-in-law, of all people.
Really?
So he read Mind Change.
Okay.
And I don't know, I think we were talking about it in his kitchen or something, and he mentioned it. And then I think I had other friends, I can't even remember who had read it too, and I thought, this sounds like something I'd be really interested in. I should pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
So I read through it and loved it.
Yeah.
But when it came to kind of the practical stuff at the end, I thought, I don't know, I just thought I need some help doing this, some encouragement. But anyways, that's how I at least kind of got introduced to it.
Yeah. And was that, so as you're like reading it and looking at that, okay, this is great information, but what is it going to take for me to like actually put this into practice?
Exactly.
That's when you had the idea for like a book club of like kind of building a community of support to do it together.
Exactly.
Okay.
And honestly, I was like, I'll take one person, I'll take two. I didn't necessarily have book club in mind, but I had talked to another friend who was, interested in kind of a similar subject. And so we got to talking about it, and I think it might have even been her idea, kind of, would you do a book club? Maybe get some other people. And so I just kind of threw it out there to my community of friends, and had way more people kind of sign on in a sense than I thought.
Yeah.
I think there was 15, 16 of us who did it. And we started right before the pandemic. We met in person twice. And then, lockdown. So then we just did the rest of it on Zoom. But yeah, it was just, I felt like I needed some encouragement, some help, somebody to kind of even, in a sense, hold me accountable so that there's assignments kind of in a sense to do at the end, or not, assignments probably not the right word, but
there are things to implement
tools.
If you want.
Yeah. And I just thought, I think I'd do better in those situations if I've got other people with me.
Yeah, the social support. Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that too, because one thing that we talk about with our problems in the book is this idea of secondary gains. Like, what are the relationships? As I make changes within myself, sometimes relationships are just like opened up and become so much better. Other times, as we change, the dynamics of our relationships change, and the ways that we've bonded with people can be through our problems. So it's really, I think one of the things that I find so cool about what you've done in the book club is it created this environment where like everybody was working and changing together. So it built in that social support. So that kind of, what can be a source of tension for people, just seems to kind of melt it away. And what you got in doing the work on your own, but supporting one another, seems like it just was it was exponential.
It really was. And we could, if we had a question about something we read, or we felt like we disagreed or whatever, we could bring it up, and it was a very safe environment. We were all reading the same thing. In a sense, through reading the book, we kind of started speaking the same language, if you will.
Totally, yeah.
So we could understand what the other person was saying. And so we could help support, or we could say, I have the same question. What do you guys think? And so it wasn't just me kind of thinking about it on my own, but it was a pool of wisdom and experience and understanding that was super, super helpful to all of us.
And it seems like you had a pretty diverse group of people. Like,
we did.
Like a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different ages. And
we had different ethnicities. We had different, I think probably the youngest, I'm trying to think who was the youngest. I was not the youngest. I'm trying to think. Who was, probably in their maybe late 20s, maybe late 30s, all the way to, I think Brenda's in her
70s. 72.
I always want to say 60s because she looks amazing. But I mean, broad range, people who knew each other, people who did not know each other, maybe acquaintances, but really didn't know each other at all, people who were in it for the book, were really interested in the book, people who were just honestly wanted to build friendships. I mean, people came in with different even reasons for reading the book in the first place. But it was amazing to see just how we all kind of just came together and got more and more comfortable. At the beginning, you could kind of feel like people are, I don't want to say guarded, maybe just a little bit, just kind of like, okay, feeling it out. Like, what's this going to be? And how much can I share about my life? But the more we got to sharing, the more we got to talking, the more it was just really easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really the sense that I've gotten from everyone too. And just like the amount of, I think there's just a sense of joy that's come through with everyone, and of like a freedom to have been able to like really deal with a lot of stuff. I'm curious, I've asked this question to a number of the other women. Do you remember when you were going through what one of your first like aha moments were, or like something like that challenged the way you thought?
That's a really good question. I think, the first thing that comes to mind, which is funny because that's what we talked about when we were using the tools, right? What's the first thing that comes to your head?
Yeah, right.
The first thing that comes to my mind, I think, is the whole victim versus victor mentality. Yeah. That whole, being a victim robs me of the power to change. If it's somebody else's, if everything is somebody else's responsibility, then I have no power to change, and that's a terrible feeling. Yeah. It's a very disempowering, right? And you just feel like, okay, well, then I am subject to everybody else's feelings and what have you. But if I can look at the situation and go, no, I have the power to change this or to think differdifferently about this, and it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. The power lies within me. For me, it was like, wow, that was so encouraging. Was it? Because I suppose you could look at it as discouraging, but for me, it was like, wow, that's amazing. All this power lies within me. If I would just take responsibility, not in a terrible, but in a good, healthy way. If I would take responsibility, then, and not put that on somebody else, then I've got the power within me, which was really encouraging. Yeah.
I love that. It's like the difference of where we get to take responsibility, but there's no judgment about it. Like there's no, like we're like, oh, this is where all this comes from. Yeah. But I can change that. Like I can change how I hold that and then how I move forward. So were there any, that's when you were able to take that sense of responsibility and of like that power, how did that change your relationship with yourself?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
How do I answer that question?
That might be a bit of a big one.
That's a big one. I don't know. I think for me, I don't know if this is going to answer exactly, but maybe starting there, we'll get to that. I was thinking about, I'm a mom of 3 girls, and they're all out of the house now. But I think for the longest time, especially showed up in my relationship with them or with my husband, I had this belief that I had to make everybody happy. Yeah. Which, I was taking on way more responsibility than was mine. I was taking responsibility away from them for their emotions and their actions and their feelings. And so if something, this is a silly example, but something as small as maybe I made a dinner that not everybody loved. Yeah. And so, one of them would be like, oh, this is not my favorite, or whatever. And I feel kind of bad and then want to kind of make something else, or although I didn't ever make a second dinner, but you know what I mean? Like I would kind of feel bad if they were kind of sad about it. It's not like anybody pitched a fit or anything, but I remember in such a strange way kind of taking that on and feeling badly because they felt bad. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I just thought when I kind of understood, wait a second. I am responsible for me and my emotions. They are responsible for themselves and their emotions. Yeah. And if they choose to not like my dinner and be pouty about it or whatever, that's on them. That's not on me. Yeah. And so for me, it was more like freedom. It just freed me up to, again, hold responsibility for my own self, for my own emotions, and not take on somebody else's, because that just ends up being this bigger burden that I didn't need to carry. Yeah. So it's a small example. There are much bigger examples than that,
But I feel like it's those small things that are sometimes like the big revelation, and they lead to so many bigger things. Yes. Like those are the moments that made me go, oh, I get this. Or were the encouragement to like keep going because I saw what a shift that made, or the amount of energy that freed up. So then I actually could focus on what I wanted. Yes. And going towards that and things like, what was, you know, a thing that has come up a number of times as we've talked with some of the other women, was how much they love doing the manifesto. What has the manifesto experience? What's something that you've loved about doing the manifesto?
I think just imagining, I'm one of those people who I think about, you know, the week ahead of me.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 weeks ahead of me.
Yeah.
And then maybe, you know, what's going to happen at Christmas or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not necessarily, or have not necessarily been somebody who's been kind of a broader thinker, like what imaginative, what can my future be like, you know, kind of thing. And so it's just kind of opened up, I feel like it's opened up my imagination.
Yeah.
It's opened up possibilities. I think it's not that I didn't ever have those thoughts or maybe dreams or something, but it was just kind of like, I don't know if that's possible. And and putting it down, I think there's something about putting it down on paper.
Yeah.
Makes it more real.
Yeah.
Which is a little scarier, but good at the same time. It kind of forced me, and I don't mean in a bad way, but kind of, you know, to write it, nudged me a little bit to go, no, but what if this could happen and be able to see it? And then I ended up writing manifestos for my kids, for my husband.
That's what everybody has said in these interviews. Yeah. They were like, I wrote it, writing them about their family and watching how that shifted like parts of how they saw them, how they thought about them, and then kind of how they treated them, and then how their like daughter or their son or their husband would respond as a result of that.
Yes. Yeah. Or how I would encourage them or what I would say, because I can kind of picture their future, you know?
Yeah.
And so that fuels then how like you said, that fuels then how I interact with them. Yeah. How they even see themselves.
Right.
So it's been, I don't know, I think it's just kind of opened things up. I think the manifesto just kind of opened up my mind.
Yeah. And how has the GPS, like, right, that's where people practice gratitude, like things that make you happy, smiles for short, and positive affirmations. How has that come into play within your, like, you know, within the process, but then within your day-to-day life?
I think within the process, that's a great question. I think especially when you get to kind of the end and you get to the tools we are working on negative experiences, past negative or perceived negative experiences or whatever, when you kind of sometimes can delve into some of maybe the negativity, I think that counterbalances that with remembering the good. There's so much good. There's so many things to be grateful for. There's so many things to smile about. Right. There are great positive affirmations that help kind of counterbalance when working through maybe some of the negative things. So I think that's been super helpful. I think just in general, I mean, there's so many studies about gratitude and how amazing it is and how it helps. I mean, a simple example, and again, this is going to sound a little silly, but it's been, we are in Texas right now, and it's been one of the hottest summers we've had. It's been over 100, and I found myself like a week ago just thinking, I have got to get out of here. Like, I was just grumpy about it. Yeah. Everything was brown and yellow and ugly, and I could feel my attitude just kind of tanking, this grumpiness set in, and just about, you know, and then that colors how you see everything else. Yeah. And so, and for a moment, and something kind of clicked in my head, and I thought, oh, I haven't written down my I do a gratitude list actually every day. Yeah. I haven't done that in a few days. I sat down and just wrote like simple things, like the sunset was beautiful that day, or my granddaughter said something funny, or whatever. And I just wrote a list, and it was amazing how that whole grumpiness just went out the window. I was joyful again. I could focus on the positive. So it makes a shift. For me, it just makes a shift in my thinking. Yeah. Because it's easy to focus on the negative. There are plenty of negative things out in the world to be focused on, but there are so many good things. Yeah. And I think the GPS just makes a spotlight shine on that for me. Yeah. That's really cool. It's such a state shifter, and it's fun getting into like the science and like the chemical reality of how that shifts things in our brains. Right. You were talking before about getting into the pain cure. I'm curious if you have any experiences in doing that you'd feel good about sharing, like something that,
just something that changed, like an experience that you had that had been perceived as negative, that now when you look back on it, right, the way that you represent it after having done the work, how you hold that and how that has ended up changing how you not just see that experience from the past, but how you experience things presently. Yeah.
Wow, I really should have thought about this.
I'm giving you the like really big question.
Oh my gosh, it's not like there isn't anything. I'm just like, okay, which one do I choose?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, like I think I have one from, it takes a moment to like remember, right? I had one from, I remember once getting into, I don't like totally remember it now because it's shifted so much. Like my mind goes straight to the like positive one that I have, but I think I'd had some sort of like argument with my dad after school one day, near, like we're at the back of the car, whatever. And I frankly don't remember what bothered me about it anymore, but what it ended up shifting to as I worked through each piece of it, and I brought in everything that I wanted it, like would like for our relationship to be, was of us having like a really like calm kind of heart to heart conversation where we're seeing things differently, but we're able to understand one another. And like, there's that sense of like really being listened to and like attentive to one another. And like having that, oh, okay, I get it now. And then just going off to the field and playing and knowing that that moment of understanding will bring like greater, like had bonded us and help us understand each other more.
Sure.
Okay. I say that now that was years ago. I think that was one of the earlier testing grounds that I have with the memory.
Yeah.
And I have had almost that exact situation like play out with my dad, where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kind of just like I envisioned it, where we're standing here and I'm walking away with the exact feeling that I practiced, right? Like I put in my past, I've practiced that feeling. And so when I've stepped into situations with him, I'm like, oh, this is the way that I'm responding now. Does that happen all of the time? No.
Sure.
But there were moments where I had the experience that I had given myself in my past, having resolved what had been something that was full of tension, now was something full of understanding, and gratitude, and closeness and joy. So I don't know if you've had any where you're like, oh yeah, like I remember that there had been something that bothered me. It had some sort of issue, but now when I look at it, I have a different understanding, and I've found echoes of that start to play out in my present. Yeah.
I think it goes, the first one that popped to my head when I was thinking about it was a little bit kind of what I was talking about before. I'm responsible for my own happiness, and other people are responsible for theirs.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I took that a lot on in my parenting with my girls. And so I think working through different situations, different memories, whether it had to do with them or even in my childhood, and I think I'm the oldest of four. And so somewhere there in my childhood, there was this understanding, this knowing that I, being the big sister, being the oldest, I was responsible. I needed to be the good example. Again, this is just how I interpreted what was going on in our family, but I needed to be the example, and take care of my siblings or what have you. And somewhere in that, I took on this also responsibility for how they felt. Again, taking on somebody else's emotions that were not my own. And so I think working through some different memories, whether it was with my parents or with my siblings or what have you, really helped me again settle and go, okay, the power lies within them for however they're feeling or thinking or what have you. Right. And then obviously I respond what am I trying to say? So anyways,
you're responsible for you.
I'm responsible for me.
And they're responsible for them. And so you're kind of free of that.
Exactly. And so that because of that, with my siblings, with my parents, that kind of filtered into my parenting with my kids. So again, if they were unhappy with me or if they were unhappy with something, I felt this need to fix it, to fix them, to help them feel better, to change their emotions, which we all know we really don't have any control over anybody else's emotions. But somehow I thought that I did, and I would take this responsibility. So when I was able to kind of work through that in those memories and kind of release that responsibility to the people who had it and take on just what was mine, then it shifted in my present relationships with my kids. So if they would be upset, again, it's not like they were putting that on me and expecting, Mom, you're responsible, you're making me feel this way. They weren't doing that. That's just the way I was interpreting things. So when I was able to let that go, then it was very freeing in our relationship. I wasn't taking that on, because what happens, practically speaking, and taking on something with my kids, then I would push to make them happy, push to have a conversation that they weren't ready for, push to do something to, try to, again, fix them. One, they're not projects, they don't need to be fixed, right? Two, I can't change their emotions anyway. And so I think there was that built tension in our relationship that didn't need to be there. And so when I was able to let go of that, then honestly, they processed whatever negative emotions they had more quickly without me having to lean in or feeling like I had to lean in and do something. And so I think that freed us up to have a better relationship, a more relaxed, they felt probably, I would think more, I don't know if they'd say this, but probably felt more empowered to change it themselves, because there wasn't meddling mom over here trying to make them feel better or fix it, or I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So it was really neat to see the shift, in my relationships with them. It wasn't necessarily, it was more working on previous relationships, or my past as a child or what have you, but that bled in maybe a few memories with my kids, but most of it was with other people, and that just kind of fed into my relationships now, whether it was my kids or my husband or whoever. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that totally does. That's exactly what I was wondering about. That's really cool. I love hearing when people get to hear the process, because some stuff, you're learning all this information and it changes how it's a difference of mindset, right? That sense of responsibility and how you react. But there's so much in how we change what we hold subconsciously instead of trying to fix or change the present, as we deal with what's there subconsciously. And our sense of ourselves shifts, it naturally, the result is natural. Instead of trying to go after the result and putting our energy there, it's like we're dealing with the sources, and it's the natural fruit that it bears, and we just get to enjoy it. I can't remember. I think it's just, I wasn't working with anybody in particular. I think I was just kind of going through the tools myself, and I had this epiphany of, I'm only responsible for my happiness. I'm not responsible for other people's happiness. And it was this weight that lifted. But I had no idea, like you said, I didn't know how it was going to play out later. And I didn't consciously enter those relationships with my girls thinking that. But subconsciously, it was already changing the way I thought about myself and the way I thought about others. And so then it just came out kind of naturally. And then I was able to step back and go, oh, we didn't get into a fight about that. That's amazing. Hopefully we have a victor. Woo! Can you share with us one of your big mind change moments?
Yeah, the first thing I think about was my fear of heights.
Oh, you were afraid of heights?
I was afraid of heights.
Okay.
So I read through Mind Change. And I was on a vacation with some of my girlfriends in North Carolina, and they wanted to go across the longest footbridge in America with 30 feet of a glass floor. And I was like, girls, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to work through this. And they all knew about the book. I think one of them had read it already. So they were familiar. And so that night, we were going to do it the next day. And I thought, there's no way I'm doing this unless I work through this. So what happens to me, or what used to happen to me with heights, is I get, pit in my stomach, just feel sick to my stomach. I get shaky. And that's when, I'm riding in one of those glass elevators, and there's one in Georgia that goes up. And I think I remember I was in high school, I think, and I was riding that. And you can see, you see all the floors past you. And I think we were on floor like 35, and I sat down on the floor because I physically couldn't stand up anymore. I sat on the floor to ride the elevator the whole way up. I could care less what anybody saw me. So, or you get close to the edge of a cliff and look down, that kind of stuff, right? I still to this day don't know when that started, because I used to climb trees all the time as a kid growing up in upstate New York. I climbed trees all the time, but somewhere, probably between elementary school and high school, I developed a fear of heights. So anyway, I just feel physically sick. I just thought, I can't do this. So I took the last, few chapters there of the book and just went through it. So I imagined, because there wasn't a specific incident that I remember that changed for me, where I went from not being afraid to being afraid. It was just kind of a knowing.
But I think that's one of the things that's great is like sometimes you have a conscious awareness of the memory. Sometimes you don't. Like, a memory isn't just the story that you have or the picture. It can just be the reaction, and you can just deal with the effects by working through the reaction itself.
Exactly. So that's what I did. So
you had the knowing.
I knew that I was afraid of heights. So I imagined myself walking across the bridge, felt all of those feelings, right? So I just interrupted. I would pull out my phone and look at something silly on Instagram or whatever, just interrupted that neural pathway.
Right.
And then I go back and, okay, am I still feeling this way? And I get all that stuff in my stomach. And so I get up and do jumping jacks or whatever to interrupt that. Yeah. Right. Until I got down to the fact where I could kind of imagine myself and I didn't feel it anymore. It was kind of neutral. Yeah. And then I thought, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? And I thought, well, feeling safe and secure. And I thought, well, what makes me feel safe and secure? And I thought about my dad, my relationship with my dad. I thought about my husband. Yeah. And I do have faith in God. And so I thought about God. Yeah. And so I just imagined myself walking across the bridge with my dad on one side, my husband on the other, God kind of buoying me up underneath. And I just imagined myself walking across that bridge. And so I did that several times. Yeah. Did it again in the morning before we went. I got there, mind you, it's a suspension bridge. I think that's what they call it. So it rocks with the wind. It was windy that day. Like the whole thing was rocking. Yeah. I was fine. I was
like actually fine.
Absolutely nothing in my stomach. Yeah. I was physically, I felt fine. There was no fear. I stumbled just a minute because it was, again, it was the wind was blowing. So I grabbed the railing, but I was like, no, I am not walking across this thing holding onto the railing. So I walked across it like a boss. I mean, it was so funny. Because I was, and it was one of those like surreal, almost out of body experiences. I was just like, guys, oh my gosh, I have no fear. I was like, do you understand? I am not feeling anything in my body. I have no fear. Walked across it to the 30 feet of glass where you could see straight down. I did a plank. I sat down on it. Wow. And walked all the way across. Nothing. I absolutely felt I was calm. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Which is really, I just thought that actually worked. Yeah. I was like, what? And since then, I've done rock wall climbing with a friend of mine inside, like in a gym. Yeah. And I got to the top and I looked back. I was like, guys, take a picture of me. I'm all the way up there. And it dawned on me. Wait, I'm at the top. I'm looking back. I'm looking down, and I'm fine. Yeah. So there were several instances after that where it just confirmed. It wasn't a one-time thing. Right. Something else. I was at another, on a hiking or something, and I looked down, and again, I was fine. Right. So there have been several instances afterwards where that change has stayed. Yeah. Isn't it cool too when you have those moments where you start to kind of forget that it used to bother you so much, and then you do something, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Like, that was so not a big deal, and that would have been a huge deal before. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was just wild. It's been really wild. Yeah. So, I'm really, and that was, I think, I can't remember if that was before we started the book club or after. I don't remember, but it was really a really neat experience to be able to have that and to have my friends around me and But there's nothing like that. There's no way I could communicate to that. As excited as I was like, oh, you guys don't understand. Like, I'm not feeling anything except for calm. So it was really, really a neat experience. It was really fun.
I really appreciate how getting to, hear from the other women in your book club. There's this sense of the gratitude for the support that you guys have in one another, right? And doing the work. But there's such a, people are doing the work themselves. It's like they're being supported and doing it for themselves. It's not like I need somebody to do this technique on me or with me. It's like, oh, okay, I just have that extra boost as I put this into practice. And like the idea that the power lies within instead of it being from somewhere else is really, like, you guys are really embodying that and encouraging one another in that. And that's been so, I love those stories, because I think sometimes people can hear these things and think that you need someone else to implement it, or it's going to take some sort of level of expertise, but the simplicity of just getting to put it into practice and know it for yourself and how that drives everyone forward is so cool.
It's been really amazing to watch these women. I mean, just health issues, relationship issues, all this kind of stuff. And if somebody would get stuck, again, it's like you wouldn't do it for them. All they needed was a bit of encouragement. Oh, I've been there. This is what I did. Maybe that will help you. Or, you've got this. It's not a big deal. You can totally do this. Sometimes it was that simple, of just a few words of encouragement, or even just, maybe I haven't shared maybe something that I was stuck on or something, but then you hear other stories and you go, oh, I can do this. They did that. I can do this. It was just sometimes just the presence of other people and knowing that other people are on the same journey or doing the same things. But maybe coming at it a different way and being able to share those victory stories, or even share the discouragement, even saying, this didn't work for me. I tried really hard on this. What do you guys think? And just having that support was so important and so empowering.
And, we look at a model of how we know how to do things, right? Like programs that are created in our mind, there are resources and memories. I think one of the things that I love about you guys doing this book club is you've added in positive resources. You've given yourselves more resources of, oh, this can work, or, oh, there was this challenge and here's how I overcame it. And it's just it multiplies what you guys are already doing to help affirm that. It becomes a positive affirmation almost.
It's been really amazing to watch. And again, it was not something I necessarily set out to do. It just kind of naturally grew out of an outpouring of practicing these things. And you're sharing some deep things, right? And so we did,
really intimate.
We did, and I have to say, we did set some ground rules from the beginning, which was what we talk about doesn't go outside of this circle.
Right.
We didn't add any new people after the second or third week because we want people to feel safe. You add a new person in after not being there and you're like, who is this person? So there were things like that we just, you only talk about you. We're not here to bash our husbands or, or somebody else. We're here to complain about our children or whatever. This is for us. And so I think those things, just kind of setting those boundaries in a sense, which I think were healthy, really provided an atmosphere for people to be vulnerable and real with with what was going on and feel safe and again, because we were doing some similar things, there was so much camaraderie and people just felt safe to be able to share those kinds of things, and there was no judgment. It was just, hey, this is where I'm at. That's okay. That's where you are. All right, let's, how can we encourage you to get to where you want to be? So I think that was it was an amazing benefit from doing all that, from doing it together.
How many book clubs have you done now?
So I did one with Mind Change, and then the second book, Metanoia Method. I've done 2, but there have been spin-off groups from that.
Okay.
My friend Carol led one with a few people, and my friend Andrea did with a few people. So they've kind of been little spin-off groups. About to start one in September, another one for Metanoia. So some of the women have been, I think Mary-Nell, bless her heart, has been with me all 3.
I think that's what she said.
Which I'm really grateful for. Because it really helps to have somebody who's been through it and who's worked through a lot of stuff to be there with the new people. So it's not just me going, no, guys, this really works. This is the evidence in my life. But it helps to have other voices like Mary-Nell. And I think Sabrina's done maybe 2 or 3 with me too. So that's been super, super encouraging. Plus, if I can't make it, then I have somebody else who can make it for me.
That's great. Is there any, like, because you've gotten to see these women over a period of time, are there any things that just like stand out in the transformation that you've seen in a couple of them? And maybe even, because when you're in the process of it, like there's a part of you that knows and you know internally, but sometimes there's this other layer of someone else getting to see it from the outside that you can't even fully fathom yourself, you know? Is there anyone from the groups you're like, oh man, when they started and where I see them now, like what a transformation?
Oh gosh, all of them. Yeah. I mean, that sounds really cliche, but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's pick on Marinelle. She's been with me from the, been doing this with me from the beginning. I think, and Marinelle would say this herself, I think, she's got 3 kids. Yeah. And so very, I think, and she would say anxious about them and their futures and what was going on. And she was doing a lot of health, a lot of skin things, and her daughter too. And has some eczema and different things with her skin. And her skin looks amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And then just she has transformed from this kind of anxious, a little bit controlling, sorry, Marinelle, mom, to this really peaceful, they've got it, they're going to be okay, they're on their own journey kind of thing. And giving the power back to them in a sense. That's just been amazing to see. I mean, she is so peaceful compared to maybe her anxious self when she started this. And then the way she's been able to pass it to her children and to her brother, and the effects that it's had really on the rest of her family has been amazing. Really amazing. I'm so, so proud of her. She's just amazing. Uyen, I mean, she's amazing. She said this herself. So she came in very much with a victim mentality. She had a lot of trauma. She had a lot that she's gone through, right?
Yeah.
And so very kind of coming in, this is I don't know, this is all that I've experienced, and this has been done to me kind of thing. And she is so not that person.
Yeah, the person I saw was
she's so empowered, so absolutely this can change, and this is my responsibility with no judgment.
Right. I think that's the thing that that has stood out to me with all of the women is just there's such a lack of judgment for themselves, for like the people in their lives. I think the freedom of that is really noticeable, and really cool to see.
It's been really neat. Even her demeanor, her face, like she just carries that joy. You just see it in her face, her demeanor, the way she holds herself. It's very different than the beginning, which was a little bit kind of hunched over, there's none of that in her demeanor at all.
Yeah.
So it's just, she's such a joy. I mean, they're all a joy, but she's just it's been a joy and fun to watch her. I'm trying to think, I mean, again, with so many, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think of Noelle and her relationship with her mom. I don't know what she shared about today, but that's been transformational, just watching her, the way her mind has shifted, the way she sees herself, the way she sees her mom. And that relationship has changed a ton. So that's been really neat to just watch and see her tears of joy over the victories that she's had. Has been really sweet to see. Gosh, Sabrina and all of her health challenges, been amazing to watch her overcome a lot.
Yeah.
And even when she feels a little stuck, but her being able to get back up and go, okay.
Yeah, we were talking about that, the moments she had shared about having done kidney stones. She's like, I haven't done it in 3 years. And I had a moment where I started again, where I was tempted to go into that victim mentality or to be discouraged. But she's like, I got to talk with everyone and be like, no, like, this is this is what it's about. This is the opportunity. This is the invitation to get to connect even more deeply and do like a deeper layer and for the love that's there and what's going to come on the other side of it. So I like those stories. I really appreciate that because we have so many of the big shifts and the changes, but like embracing how it is a process, and that like those are sometimes the moments that can be the most empowering, I think, and carry us really far.
I think about my friend Yuri. She kind of came in really just not really knowing anything about the book, but just funny enough wanting to get to know me, which is, that's a whole other story. It's just funny, and wanting deeper friendships. But she kind of came in, I mean, she's, again, has her own story, right? Single mom for a long time, like amazing woman, super talented, very self-sufficient.
Yeah.
But she came in, I think, not with walls up on purpose, but just, it's how she was keeping herself safe, how she was, interacting with people. And I think it was one of those come close, but not too close. And it just through the whole process, through her working on, on herself, and just the whole process of being in that group, she just blossomed like a flower. I mean, she just, she kind of started off like this and just opened up and was, just super willing to just talk about whatever and share her life and share her story. And I saw her relationships with other people change.
Yeah.
And so she kind of started like this and ended up like this, just this beautiful rose of flower that opened. So it was really neat to see that. Yes, it was just beautiful to see. So again, I mean, good grief, we had so many people.
Well, group, I know we're gonna get to talk with some more in like a round table tomorrow too. So.
Yes.
Really Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to come and to share about your experience, and then just about doing everything with the book club. It's really cool to get to meet you in person.
Yes.
And to hear, and it sounds like there's even more around the corner with doing yet another round.
Yeah.
I'm
very excited. It's going to be awesome.